stuff. I love it. I love it. I'm super pumped. Okay. Boom. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. We have a super exciting show on radical wholeness. I'm really excited to have Philip Shepard joining us. Hello.
Hey, Alan.
Thanks for coming on the show.
So good to be here.
Greatly appreciate it. Philip's visiting us from Toronto to host a workshop, which he hosts around the world on radical wholeness and on just this major transition that's going on in society. We're figuring out how to drop out of our heads. That culture programs us to be in our heads and into our bodies. And so we're going to explore this together. We have, a two-time author on our hands. We have initially authored New Self, New World, and that was in 2010. And then now the author of Radical Wholeness, which came out 1 year ago, about
Almost to the day.
Almost to the day.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, we teaching the workshops as well as teaching facilitators around the world, which is really exciting on something that's becoming it's getting to become more mainstream. It's not like, the mainstream media outlets aren't picking it up quite yet, but we do have...
It's gotta come.
It's gonna come.
Jeez. Yeah.
So, okay, as we're going to drop into radical wholeness, we're going to drop into what you're teaching and how, but we want to know how you got here. Who are you? How'd you get here? Let's talk about that.
Okay, to talk about that, we need to talk about Philip Shepard, the teenager.
Yeah.
And I felt suffocated by my culture. It's like the adults around me were living out this fantasy and no one seemed to realize it, and they're all stuck in these patterns of behavior that are like shallow and repetitive, and it was like the warrior spirit against this stuff. Just, give me a pattern and I will demolish it. How are you? Well, what do you mean by that question? Is this an ontological inquiry? So I was intolerable as a teenager. But what I realized is that I wasn't going to win. It's like fighting an unknown assailant, because your culture is everywhere. It's in your own body, right? And so the only way I was going to survive and not succumb was to leave my culture. So I went to England and I bought a bicycle.
Was this around 18 or when was this?
I was 18.
Okay.
Went to England when I was 18, bought a bicycle, and headed for Japan. So
What? Normal story here.
Yeah. So I cycled, alone through Europe and the Middle East and India and Japan.
Oh, whoa.
I spent, and I slept outside everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's something, when your life depends on it, this whole new field of sensitivity awakens. So, I'd be cycling along and the sun would be going down and I'd start to attune, need to find a place to sleep. And it was like every night I was guided to a place where I could spend the night safely.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through so many different ways of understanding what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And when you're on a bike, I'm a kid on a bike, right? And you just feel everything. It just sifts through you. And every one of those cultures was luminous and beautiful, and everyone was limited. But the only time, there was only once I got hit with culture shock, and that's when I came home.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this bizarre world? And so that time away, I was away for 2 years, I gained the ability to question my culture.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the reason I went to Japan was to study classical Japanese no theater.
Japanese no theater?
It's called Japanese no theater.
Like N-O or K-N-O-W?
N-O.
N-O.
It's what they call no gakudo.
No gakudo.
And
what? It's so cool.
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah. Why'd you go to? You went to study that?
When I was
What is it?
When I was 17, I was an actor working with a company downtown, and I was reading everything. So I read these treatises on classical no theater. When I say classical no theater, it's from the time of Chaucer. It's from the 1300s.
1300s, okay.
600 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
But this guy, the founder of No Theater, Yamamoto Kyo, was saying, like, in allegory, in illusion, everything that could be said about art. I was like charged by this. And then a No Theater play was coming to Montreal, which is a 5-hour bus ride from where I was living in Toronto. So I went to see this play, and it shook me to my core. It just undid my being. And so I was in tears, shaken to my core, and I had no idea how it had that effect on me. Yeah. And so it was in Japan that I studied No Theater and discovered hara. Hara is the Japanese word for belly.
Oh yeah, because that's hara hachibu.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Eat until you're 80% full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Japanese culture, like, you can't really translate hara as belly because, in the West, belly is this troublesome area that's prone to indigestion and weight gain and embarrassment, or if you work really hard, vanity. Our relationship with the belly precludes us from translating hara as belly. In the Japanese culture, hara is where your profoundest truth lies.
Oh, interesting.
It's like when you come home to yourself, that's where you come to.
Wow.
And so that's why I'm watching this Japanese play as a teenager, and I have no idea the effect it's having on me because like, I'd never seen an arm lift from that place. I'd never seen a head turn and see from that place.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was so blessed as a teenager to encounter that, and that sort of started a really deep journey for me.
And you saw in your childhood, you were seeing a lot of the sort of meaningless connections, these surface level connections that you wanted to shatter through them. You were like, what is the human experience? It's way more than what I see here, and I want to get to that. And then you got to it by going and seeing this No Theater. And then you how did you make the connection that the hara is the gut? Did you have to be in Japan to like get that part of it? And
yeah, I didn't know about it till I was there, and I studied it. And there's hara is like the basis of the performing arts in Japan. It's like that's where you go to, and even in Zen, that's where you go to, is that place in the body. And we're up in the head trying to
all the time
figure everything out.
I just slowly dropped a little bit more into my body, and it started feeling really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa. They're not calling the gut like second brain. So many neurons, so much serotonin.
Anatomically, that's what's interesting. Anatomically, there's a brain in the belly.
Yeah.
And you look at our culture. This was discovered like in the early 1900s. There was a book published in 1910 by Byron Robinson out of Chicago, this anatomist, and he published this book called The Abdominal and Pelvic Brain.
Interesting.
And he had the anatomical drawings, mapped out the neurology, and it's like we forgot about it. Mm-hmm. And then it was discovered again by Johannes Langley. We forgot about it. It was discovered again in the 1960s by Michael Gershon. He's studying, the gut, and he's finding serotonin there, which is a thought molecule. Yeah, what's it doing in the gut? And he discovered. But even then, it took him 15 years to persuade his fellow neuroscientists that this is, by any standard you wish to hold up, a brain. Yeah. So there is no place in our culture's story of what it means to be human for a brain in the gut, because the head is where the brain is. The head should be in charge. We're totally, totally devoted to that.
I love how the story is emerging for me. I'm putting your pieces together, the early ones. So you have, like, you're around 20 in Japan, and you're getting this eureka moment of your existence. You're like, okay, if we at least focus more on the body, we can live more fully rather than in our heads. Yeah. And then what were the other things that led you to be like, I know how to bring that to the world?
I've been an actor all my life.
You started acting?
I've been an actor since my teens.
That explains the ability to how you're like, you're just like, screw all this cultural nonsense.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. Any exercise you give an actor that is worth anything is another way to learn to be present. It's that simple, right? If you can go on stage and be present to what is happening with the whole of your being, everyone will watch you. They will understand.
Yeah.
It's just a given. So, as an actor, I had to get into my body or I wouldn't. I had to learn how to drop the breath into the whole of my body or my voice wouldn't carry. And so as an actor, I've watched hundreds of hours of classical no theater and taken that into my body. And I'm training in Western theater and taking that in my body. And I'm sort of finding this marriage between the two. So I ran my own, there were 3 directors of this interdisciplinary theater company. One was a dancer, a mime, and I was an actor. And we trained each other and
Back in Toronto?
Back in Toronto. Yeah. It was called physical theater before like in 1983, before there was such a thing, a genre called physical theater. And then I hooked up with a guy, Stephen Rumbelow, who was one of the pioneers of physical theater in England.
Interesting.
And he ran a theater called Triple Action Theater. And I trained with him, and he's radical. And eventually you attune. You step on stage as an actor and you attune to the life that is there, and you ride it the way a surfer rides a wave. And so, stepping out of the puppetry and into the life of it. And I was teaching workshops for actors that were trying to bring them into an awareness of the legs, of the body, of the that deep awareness in the gut, that center from which you see and hear and speak. And so my acting workshops were unlike anything else, and I noticed a lot of people were coming to the acting workshop who weren't actors, like graphic designers and philosophy students. And what happened was, working with them, things deepened for me and questions deepened, and that led to my first book. So my first book, New Self, New World, grew out of that material. And in fact, when I began writing the book, it was called The Way of the Actor. And then I gave that up. I mean, it took me 10 years to write the book, and I started it from scratch 4 times.
Yeah.
And was on this learning curve. I just loved every minute of it.
Okay, before we do New Self, New World, now how does one study, like what did you learn in no theater that then brought you into the ability to learn how to act, and also from the body, and also learn how to teach other people how to act?
So here's a contrast between no theater and Western theater.
Okay, yeah.
In Western theater, it's all, what happens, what's important is all from the waist up. There's this happening and it's from the waist up. In no theater, the power of the performance is from the waist down.
Interesting. So
Now that's hard to
like
describe.
The subtle opening of the leg as you walk in a direction.
They have a sensitivity to the earth that
interesting.
that it just shimmers, and the feet slide along the stage, and the whole body is attuned to the earth, and the leg lifts and stamps, and it's just, and so they've got this principle, like the actor's body in no theater. From the waist up, it's open and available and soft. From the waist down, it's grounded and strong.
Yeah.
And that availability up above, I mean, we cram the body with congestion and anxiety, and it's such, so I've come to understand that any energy that is held in the body is a form of resistance to the present. So that wide open availability of the body with that groundedness of the legs and the hips below it is a dynamic that reflects what our true intelligence is. Can we segue into that?
Yes, I have to still. You're on a whole nother level of being and consciousness. So we have to keep unpacking. This is insane. So this is about the connectedness of the body to the earth, to the point where as you were speaking, first of all, I had this like really interesting distinction between like Western, I guess, culture and acting, where it's like, you know, it's kind of like heady or like trying to like move the upper body like you were describing. Yeah. And then this, for some reason I was imagining this, you know, the lower body was, you know, just like you said, sliding and then up. And then this, you know, a very strong, and I was imagining the earth's energy coming through my legs from my feet being planted on the ground, and actually being aware of that process. Yeah. And what that does, it gives you a whole deeper sense of connection to earth, which gives you a deeper sense of connection to the audience and the life that you're bringing through you. And so anyway, I'm just so interested about that, at least to start, that like, because that totally gets me going for everything else that we're getting into. It's so cool.
And in our culture, our legs are prosthetics. Basically, that's how we treat them. That's how we experience them.
Just take the brain places.
Yeah. And the legs are teeming with intelligence.
Yes.
And sensitivity. They feel the world, they feel the earth, and for us, they just perambulate like prosthetics. There's the earliest lyric poet in the Western tradition, and lyric poetry uses I, epic poetry uses they. So the earliest lyric poet was a guy called Archilochus, and he was this mercenary soldier who wrote with passion, and he wrote this little fragment of a poem: "With what springs in my legs, I leapt the rocks." Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
I just, that embodied connection with that intelligence. And I had to reclaim that for myself. And I had to reclaim this spaciousness in the body because. So can I segue into intelligence?
Yes, and I will never think of my bottoms of my feet and my legs the same after this. I won't. I will never think of it the same. I will always be much more aware of what intelligence lies in the legs and what comes up through the body from the legs. I love that. I'm so happy that you taught us that. That's really beautiful.
So intelligence. We've defined intelligence as the ability to reason in an abstract fashion. Now we've given that definition to the part of us that happens to excel at reasoning in an abstract. So it's a somewhat flattering definition for anyone who lives in their heads, but it's nonsense. And they give you an IQ test. That's the faculty they're testing for. And here's the number. That's your intelligence. Our intelligence. I mean, that's a form of intelligence. It's one bandwidth on the spectrum, but the spectrum I would begin by calling sensitivity. So you can have a sensitivity to language, to a child's tears, to arithmetic relationship, to color, to music. There are innumerable sensitivities. You couldn't possibly name them all. Any sensitivity.
It's like a sensitivity it's like a sensitivity towards a field of knowledge, kind of. And
a sensitivity is something that allows you to be informed. Right? Yeah. By this color, by this music, by this whatever it is.
And then some of us have trained ourselves to be more sensitive to.
And I think some of us are just born with this depth of sensitivity in a really specialized area.
Yeah.
But the thing with sensitivity is that it's reactive. So the retina reacts to light. If it didn't, we wouldn't see. that reactivity needs to be grounded. And that doesn't happen without the body. So I think our true intelligence is grounded sensitivity.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that's good.
And you take that, okay, if you accept that our true intelligence is grounded sensitivity, then you look at our education system, which systematically desensitizes us and leaves us chronically ungrounded. And it's doing that in the name of supporting and promoting our intelligence. So we mistake cleverness for intelligence. And we're super clever. We're just astonishingly clever, but we've forgotten how to live intelligently as a culture.
Grounded sensitivity.
Yeah.
And Ron, do you have some thoughts over there?
We mistake cleverness for intelligence, and also some people mistake luck for intelligence. And there's also some very, I don't like calling anybody dumb or ignorant or whatever, but why is it that the people that are just lacking a certain sense of intelligence think they're so terribly smart? And they discredit anybody that has something, that makes sense. When somebody says something that makes sense, and just the dumbest among us just discredit these people. So that's what I'm troubled with. That's all. I mean,
well, I appreciate your troubled state, and just to throw something in there. For my money, the most dangerous people in the world, who feel their ideas about the present more keenly than they feel the present.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think anything's more dangerous.
That's pretty good, Ron. I like that one.
There's many dangerous people in power making decisions on our behalf that are extremely problematic.
But that's a pretty good way to summarize it, though. It's people that are intellectualizing about the present and trying to make decisions for other people about the present, but they're the least grounded in the present. The ones that have the most grounded sensitivity in the present, that's like the most, that's the best currency to have as a human, is your ability to be grounded and sensitive in the present, and then be able to be there with other people with that loving kindness, gratitude, energy that other people just vibe off of, and they're like, I can't even be mad around this person.
So then you go back to no theater. So here's this lower part of the body in contact with the earth and grounded and humming with that, and the upper body available and open. There's the grounded sensitivity. And we walk around with this cluster of congested energy in our bodies, and so our culture is attached to the idea that we are alone. And it's like when we're kids, we're taken as seedlings and stuck into this pot of aloneness and said, grow there. That's what we're told, right? If you take on that cultural instruction that you're alone, then there's this cascade of effects that starts to happen. To begin with, you experience your private feelings and thoughts as strictly private. Your experience is a private experience, and it's sort of held by this boundary, and then the world is out there. And of course, any experience is shared. A heartbeat is felt in those around you. There's nothing that happens in the body that doesn't ripple into the world. But if you're attached to the idea that your experience is private, your primary job in life becomes to manage that experience so it feels good, so it's successful. If that's your primary job in life, then your primary relationship is with yourself. And then you are trapped in self-consciousness, right? And you see that, in these
over the place,
well-intentioned movements that put the attention on the self and fix the self and feel your breath, and whether it's New Age or body work or whatever, and that's all fine. I have nothing against that, but that's just the precondition to opening up to the world.
Yes. But it's a necessary step to be able to tune inward, to be able to break through the barrier of I am alone and that I'm actually interconnected.
I think it's a misunderstood step, that's all.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, okay.
so here's my take on it. The body is a resonator. The body will resonate to the present. It will resonate to every current that is passing through the world. But what we do is we stuff the body full of cotton balls, like a bell, and then, the present's going like this, trying to ring it. And
that's a good way to put it.
right, and it's full
Like
of
a
cotton.
like a heartbeat, literally.
Yeah.
So if you're really in tune to existence, you can feel your heart beat and give your body life, moment after moment. If you're real, and that's cascading into everything, and that. I like how you put that. If you put all the cotton balls inside, and you try and hear a heartbeat, you can't. So interesting. So we're trying to dig cotton balls out and reprogram, because culture has made the big programming.
When you do that inner work, for me, the purpose of the inner work is just to find and integrate the obstructions. Right? And you find those and you integrate them. And there's more and more space inside the body. And then the heartbeat that you ring to is like the pulse of the present. And there's no hunter-gatherer culture that has not attuned to the present and felt it in ways we have no idea about.
Yeah.
They can feel animals moving through the jungle. They feel the presence of water when they're thirsty.
Yeah.
They feel this plant as a medicinal plant. And I mean, we've got this bizarre notion that oh yeah, isn't it great those traditional societies have such a wonderful knowledge of medicinal plants, and of course they would, trial and error over hundreds of years, you get to know what's what. Trial and error, that's insane. I mean, can you imagine, John's got a headache. What plant haven't we tried for headache? Oh, here's one. Here, John, try this. Oh no, John died. Is there anyone else who has a headache? Because we've got another 47 plants to try. It's insane. They commune with the plants. They feel the life of that plant and understand it's what they need at the moment. Over and over and over. The world is whispering to us, and we're stuffed with cotton balls and don't hear it. In fact, we're so stuffed with cotton balls that the present ceases to exist as a whole for us. We've shattered that reality. The one reality is wholeness. Everything depends on everything. Everything relies on everything.
Yeah.
It's the nature of our reality, and we have so desensitized ourselves as a culture that we are numb to wholeness. We can, when's the last time you felt the present as a whole, or your body as a whole, or your life as a whole? We feel bits and pieces. We aggregate them together, but that's not wholeness. Wholeness doesn't have a boundary. We want to stuff the self into the boundary. So wholeness in our culture, we aspire to be whole in body, mind, and spirit, and it's such a lovely sentiment, but it's nonsense, because it's saying, there are these three aspects to the self, and you just need to allow each of them to flourish and come into harmony, and you will be whole. Wholeness is found in your relationship with the present, in your relationship with the world. And we go digging down inside ourselves to find wholeness, and it's not there, and self-knowledge isn't there. We think self-knowledge is something you find by reaching inside. Self-knowledge is born in us by relationship. So you see a kid playing with chalk on a sidewalk, and you feel that moment, and you're illuminated by it in a certain way. Or you see a tree, and it suddenly catches you, and you feel its towering life and its deep roots, and you're illuminated by it. And the more deeply you come into felt relationship with the world, the more deeply you discover yourself.
Yes. Felt relationship with the world, our ability to be present radically whole, present, that is what our presence with the world, it makes us radically whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That I want to ask you a couple things because you just went and gave us the radical wholeness definition, which is amazing. You were talking about the cotton balls being stuffed in. Even before that, you were mentioning the hunter-gatherers. Just the amount of grounded sensitivity is amazing to think about. And even for people that were in the village, in the marketplaces, in the village with the kids, in the village, working on the different aspects that needed to be done there. Just the sense of, again, I don't know. I romanticize many times the past because I feel as though we had a better grasp on presence because we were a little bit more attuned to the being right there in the present and that making us whole. But I want to know your thoughts about, there's cotton balls stuffed in from childhood. First of all, for the adults, how do we dig cotton balls out? How do we practice how do we practice that presence? You have exercises that dig the cotton balls out. And then also, what would be the guidelines for kids? Like a lot of their neural architecture is developed by the time they're 2 or 3, and then there's a process of pruning throughout life. What do you think about the education of a child and how we can connect them to that sense of presence and learning?
The thing about kids is that they learn how to be human from the people around them. So I don't care what you're telling your kid as a parent, what you're modeling is what they're learning.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can yell at your kids to settle down, and what they will see is power is achieved through anger and aggression.
Don't do as I do, do as I say.
That's it. So then there's this onus of responsibility on a parent, how to be fully present to your child. Now, if you're fully present to your child, you will understand their different harmony. You will understand that their soul aches to explore and find out, and then all you unleash that on the world, and they're going great guns. But we corral kids into think of how many hours as a kid you spend sitting in a chair at a desk, suppressing the body's energy, which is the body's intelligence, right? And filling your head with ideas. And what you learn, the primary lesson that school teaches our children is to divide their thinking from their being. And that is the wound that runs through the whole of our culture. So we've learned that we can think more clearly with this segregated portion of our intelligence than we can with the whole of our being. And how to access that humming intelligence of the whole and reconcile. We live in this binary culture where it's either this or that. Like it's either, you feel from the heart or you think analytically, but they don't belong together. We don't know how to integrate them. We've got these gut instincts and we don't know how to integrate that with the head or the head with the gut. It's everything is compartmentalized. So you look at our architecture, any building we build is ultimately a symbol of what it means to be human. Every aspect of our culture symbolizes what it means to be human. So we build these houses that have really clear lot lines, and you need a surveyor because you don't want to lose 1 inch of your property. And then the house is set safely back from the lot line so you don't have to interact with your neighbor. And then your house has got locks on all the windows and doors, and the inside of the house is compartmentalized with doors that close and lock. And that's our body. That's how we live in our body. That's why we feel so comfortable in that architecture.
Damn.
right? And there are. I mean, again, go to Japan, and I remember I was riding all day. It was cold and raining, and I pulled up at, with my little youth hostel book, because there was a youth hostel here and I couldn't find it. And someone was walking along the sidewalk, "Can I help you?" And, "Yes, where is this place?" "Oh, it doesn't exist."
Yeah.
Great. And they took me into their home.
Aww.
Right? And they pull out these paper screens to create the room for me and put down the futon on the tatami. And the house is permeable. One room moves into another. There's this permeability, not just within the house, but between the house and the outside.
Yeah.
And we've inculcated an impermeability to our bodies. By contrast, there's an African culture, the Anglo-Ewe, and anthropologists have remarked at their radical indeterminacy of personhood. Radical indeterminacy of personhood.
As in, I belong to the collective. There isn't that there is a...
And it's partly that, but it's partly I'm available to the present. The present will reveal who I am. As I come into relationship with the present, I'm this now, and I'm that now, and I'm moved by the present, and we feel it's like our civic duty to construct the structure of our personality so that you establish who you are and you know who you are. And for me, you've got a choice. You can be who you know yourself to be, or you can be present, but they're incompatible. The more strictly you hold on to your built, structured identity, the less available you are to the present.
Interesting. Yeah, that for sure seems to resonate with me, because I'm thinking about how often I am feeling, how often I am open-minded, and the more that I am permeable, that I'm present, that I'm open-minded, that I have a greater connection to what is going on around me. That tree makes a beautiful impression on me, feeling on me. The person that is, just kindly doing something, or even the loud person makes an impression on me on the inside. I'm like, it was loud. And so I feel that more so when I'm trapped in my own thinking processes, I'm missing on those feelings and those sensitivities. The way you described the house was so interesting. The lockedness of everything, and the inches on the yards, and the windows and the doors.
And you look at a skyscraper. What does a skyscraper tell you? The primary message it communicates is that nature is irrelevant. That's what it's announcing to the world.
The monolithic ones.
Yeah. And like a bit of moss is a taint on the skyscraper. And if there's a plant, it's because we've designed it, and it's decoration. I mean, we've taken the most intimate teacher we have, nature, and turned it into decoration.
Yeah.
And we're so clever.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to put it. Just even having our plants in the studio, to me, I couldn't not have them in the studio. And it's not because it's a decoration. It's more like I would be too far separated from Earth if I did have them in here. Yeah.
And then that's companionship. That's something different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You're familiar with arcology, architecture and ecology? To smash them together into arcology, and there's beautiful buildings in Singapore and other places in the world where they've just done such a better job at integrating Earth into the buildings. And that's interesting. The monolithicness.
Those vertical forests.
Vertical forests, yes. So I'm so. The analogy of the body to the house and the lockedness. You're talking about Japan, this kind of these open, this modularity to the outside and to the rooms, and yeah.
And you look at our primary cultural love affair with the car. The car is a head on wheels. And you know what? 3 headlights would illuminate the road better than 2. But that's intolerable. We need the metaphor of the 2 headlights because we have 2 eyes.
Interesting.
Right? And we move into the car the way we sit in our heads, and we listen to our private music and podcasts the way we listen to our own thoughts, and we move through the world and look at it through the windshield like it can't touch us, the way we sit inside our heads and look out at the world. That's how we live in our heads. That's why we love the car so much. It's so cozily familiar.
Whoa, yeah. Whoa, 2 headlights. When was the last time someone proposed like a 3 headlight car and seen the efficacy of how well it lights up the road? I bet better, of course, right? So why? It's because of the eyes, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, when you're driving, you have to see the 2 eyes coming this way and the 2 eyes going that way at the tail lights, or the 2 eyes on the back. And then, the coziness of the head. Thank you, Ron. I wanna talk about the. You gave us the children, and you gave us the be the role model for the kid. Don't say be that presence. Be that presence of the kid.
As honestly as you can.
As honestly as you can, and admit the mistakes. I have so many, and I really, exactly. Be as honest as you can. I want to know about the exercises that you teach in your manifestos and in the workshops. Digging the cotton balls out, throwing them up in the air, shooting a flamethrower, and burning the cotton balls.
There are so many of them. In the weekend workshop, I moved through 4 themes, and the first theme is breath, and that's the morning of the first day, and rest is the second theme, receptivity is the third, integration is the fourth. So breath, we're looking for the right way to breathe. There isn't such a thing, right? But there's a principle, and the principle is the whole of your body available to the back? To the breath. So I was thinking about the back. And then you begin to see how the breath is shut down in the body.
Because our breath is so shallow almost all the time.
We muscle it. We think we need to muscle the breath. And we know, it's important to breathe deeply. And we are such a top-down culture. We push the breath down from the top as deep as we can, and that takes muscles, and the muscles get tired, and the breath goes shallow again. And that's not how babies breathe.
Ooh, how do
right?
you, how...
So the body releases to the breath. And that's where the pelvic bowl comes in, which in our culture is shrouded in this shadow of neglect. But I feel, like within the pelvic bowl, I feel the pelvic floor as the ground of my being. The pelvic floor technically is a diaphragm in the body. So there's the thoracic diaphragm and a diaphragm here. The pelvic floor is a diaphragm. Now, the pelvic floor will support the out-breath and release to the in-breath. But in our culture, we tend to lock it up. We deaden that area. And when you deaden that area, when the breath is incapable of penetrating the pelvic bowl, if the pelvic floor is the ground of your being, you have no place to land in the body because it's in shadow, it's in darkness. You can't feel it. So that gentle release of the pelvic floor to the breath awakens the ground of your being. And here's the interesting thing. We're taught to breathe with the thoracic diaphragm, and that works fine, but it'll move and breathe, and the pelvic floor can be absolutely clenched and immobilized. If the pelvic floor releases, the thoracic diaphragm has to release. So it's inclusive. And in fact, as the pelvic floor releases to the in-breath, it invites the whole of the body to participate. Right? So the pelvic floor supports the out-breath, and it slightly domes up into the body, and then from that engaged place, it just releases. And when it releases, there's a sense of the breath filling the body from the bottom up rather than the top down. So it's like the pelvic floor opens to the breath, and the breath lands there and fills the body from the bottom up. And you're not muscling the in-breath, you're not muscling the out-breath. The body's releasing to it. Well, that's a whole mess of cotton balls.
Yeah.
Like to work through that.
And that's the back, that's the lower back, and that's the pelvic floor. That's where our legs are connected. And this is so many things. The psoas muscles. This is an insane amount of even the central nervous system and the bottom. This is an extremely important part of our bodies, and we are sitting and passing so much time on the devices. And that's again this shallow breath in the head over and over again on the devices. So okay. So that's a huge part.
And when you feel that release of the pelvic floor to the in-breath, there is this wave of, it's like this massage for all the viscera. And stomach problems, intestinal problems are chronic in our culture. And if people could allow the breath into there and allow that life, finally, the digestion could release into its own intelligence and be free to do what it knows to do.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, and then continue. Yes, so
well,
that's
just a
breath.
sense of the exercise. The back has this phenomenal capacity for breath, but the back is like, there are these axes in the body that, for me, fall along a male-female polarity. So we know about like right brain to the left hand, left brain to the right hand, and the right side tends to be dominant, the left side tends to be sensitive to the whole, and we demean the left. We force people who are left-handed to write with the right. We call the left sinister. Sinister actually means left. There's this polarity between the cranial brain and that brain in the pelvic bowl that we talked about, where this is analytical and systematic and gains perspective. Well, you gain perspective by stepping back and creating distance. So this holds us at a distance from the world. And this other brain comes into felt relationship and attunes to wholeness. And then there's this polarity between front and back. In our culture, we're all about the front, and that's like the male part of our sensitivity. And the back, there is mystery. At the back, there is this support. The whole of your life, in a sense, is present there, ready to help you take the next step. But in each of those cases where there's a polarity between a male sensitivity and a female, we have demeaned and shut down and neglected the female sensitivity. We've demeaned the left side of the body, we've demeaned the intelligence in the pelvic bowl, and we've lost the back, we've lost the breath in the back. So I can talk from my front, and this is how I sound if I do, and there's no breath going into my back. And then I allow the breath into my back and everything changes. And when I'm taking the breath into the front of my body, it's as though there's a barrier going up between me and the world. I can, I bring the breath into my front, and it's like I'm separate from the world. When I bring the breath into my back, it's like an embrace. It's like inclusive. It's such a different quality.
Yeah, and you discovered these through your own experiential wisdom.
My own experiential wisdom, and I studied voice with a really brilliant voice teacher.
Yeah, you have a very powerful voice. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite voices. I love it.
Well, then I should mention that Radical Wholeness there's an audiobook, and I read.
Good.
Yeah, I loved that so much.
Yeah. And give us the quick rest and
good. So rest. Our culture says up is good, down is bad. You're looking up. She's looking a little down today. Everything is about heaven is up, hell is down. right? So you want to be in the head, you don't want to be down.
Oh, sure.
So what happens is we I was talking about how any energy held in the body is a form of resistance to the present. Well, our energy is held up in the body. It's disconnected from the earth, and it's such a different thing to let that energy settle. It's like there's an exercise I do that allows that energy to melt in the body, and you feel it trickle down to the soles of your feet and fill the legs and fill the pelvic bowl. So there's this spaciousness above it and this grounded presence below it. And the other part of rest is we've got this idea that thinking only happens in the head. But other cultures think from the heart, other cultures think from the belly. So how to let this frantic node of thinking drop down and come to rest on the pelvic floor. So you can feel the world from the pelvic floor. You can feel the sounds of the world and the sights of the world from there, and that is radically different.
Yeah.
So you're moving from an abstract realm that knows only bits and pieces, that knows only how to analyze and pull things apart, into a realm that attunes to wholeness. And the world feels different, and your place in it feels different.
It's beautiful feeling the world from the body rather than the brain,
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of embodiment work is about listening to the body, and that's valuable, but it's not embodiment. Embodiment is about listening to the world through the body.
Yeah,
For my
interesting.
money.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do we want to hit on the last two as well?
Receptivity.
Yep.
There is an equivalence between receptivity and presence.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to be present. How do you be present? Well, if I'm fully receptive to you, I'm fully present to you.
Mm-hmm.
So then you realize in our culture there is no place, there's no time where we're allowed to just receive. And so to move for a whole morning into receptivity is to find another avenue through which you explore presence. And it's so easy to just sit and receive, and by doing so, you ground yourself in your own presence.
Interesting.
And then integration, there's so many exercises that, for example, you can take an idea in the head and feel how it feels in the head, and you can drop that idea through the body and allow it to come to rest on the pelvic floor, and it is reborn as a sensitivity. The idea, the flower is red, is reborn as a felt experience as it lands on the pelvic floor. And why does that matter? Because sensitivity is the foundation of our intelligence. And as long as you're running the show with unintegrated ideas, you cannot live intelligently.
Yeah, grounded sensitivity is intelligence. Yeah, I love what you've taught us about the body. I love what you've taught us about grounded sensitivity being intelligence, and about your story, your journey that got you to this point of teaching this, and it's so powerful. Philip, I want to ask you one question that we typically ask. At least this question is one of my favorite ones to ask. Is what is the most beautiful thing in the world?
What comes to my mind is forgiveness. That heart opening, that incredible dissolving of some hurt. It's a wonderful question. And if there were more forgiveness in the world would be a very different place.
Yeah. Philip, wow, this has been so nice.
It's been such a treat, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thank
much
you.
fun.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I will never be able to walk the same again. I will always be doing my best to train myself to feel the earth as I'm walking, as I'm standing, as I'm laying, always feeling the earth. Yeah, there was this incredible, at Transtech, there was this incredible just bed of metallic plates that had a random number generator vibrating the plates, and you were just laying on the bed, and so it simulated the earth's vibration, and
Gorgeous.
it was so cool. The body just went like, this is home. It was so cool. It was so cool. And so these are the future technologies that we can pair together with things like radical wholeness. I'm looking forward to what this is going to look like in the next couple of years as these youths come into play as well.
Oh yeah.
With their intelligence.
Oh yeah, they're refashioning the world.
Grounded sensitivity in the body. I have a lot to practice, and I thank you so much, Philip. This has been such a pleasure. Wow. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Your voice is beautiful. Your body is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been such a treat. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Let us know what your thoughts were on this episode. Also, definitely check out Philip's books. Their links are in the bio. Go check them out. Check out his website. Check out his workshops. And let's get to that grounded sensitivity together. Thank you, Ron, for producing and directing. Much love to you. And happy birthday. Just there you go. So much love, so much love. And join us, support us. We're trying to scale our efforts. Join us, Patreon, cryptocurrency are below. Much love, everyone, and we will see you soon. Peace.